Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Daniel Sachs, CEO and co-founder of Landbase, a go-to-market automation platform that's raised $12.5 million in funding. Daniel, what's up, man?
Hey, Brett, great to speak today.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Talk to us about what you're building.
Let's do it. So, as everyone knows, the biggest business challenge that people have is generating leads that convert. And ultimately, I've lived this challenge as an entrepreneur. And what's crazy about go-to-market today is that you need so many tools, so much data, and so many people to have an effective go-to-market and to break through the noise. And our belief is you shouldn't need a PhD in go-to-market in order to generate leads. And therefore, we're using AI and advanced machine learning, specifically what's called agentic AI, which can take action based on data. And what we do is we believe in a world where you no longer should have to live and kind of work for your software, but your software works for you. So what we can do is harness machine intelligence and combine it with your human performance to be able to create go-to-market campaigns that have a really high likelihood of converting. And we want to make that super easy. So all you have to do is review the ideas. You can, accept, decline, or you can edit some of the campaigns and get launched in minutes, not months.
Now, I know you previously founded a company called AppDirect. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about that today. It did become a unicorn. And I think it was a unicorn before it was cool to be a unicorn. I think you hit that threshold in 2015 for the first time. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. We were one of the first 100 unicorns. And at the time, it was a little, even more rare. The company has since grown dramatically in the private markets and made a huge impact on businesses. So most people don't know this, but a huge chunk of cloud sales goes through AppDirect. So we're kind of like the technical infrastructure or the commerce layer for distributing cloud services ranging from Microsoft 365 to CrowdStrike and all these different services. So it was a great experience kind of riding the SaaS wave. And now I think, if you think about the history of B2B technology, there's really been on-prem and then the transition to SaaS and now the transition to AI. Whenever you have these transition moments, it's magical because everything changes and that creates huge opportunity.
Being a founder who's reached that level of status of building a unicorn, I'm sure there's endless opportunities that you could have pursued, endless problems that you could have solved. Why this problem? Why did you decide to focus on go-to-market?
Well, I think the better question is why aren't I retired on an island, right? I think, look, I did a transition out of AppDirect, still the big shareholder, board member, very big supporter, but took some time off and I traveled the world with my family. We went kind of the theme. I have two little kids, but they wanted to go see nature. So we were in the Amazon and we did safari in Africa and we went to, all these different places. We went to Raja Ampat in Indonesia on this boat with scuba diving. And it was just so amazing to kind of free my mind. I spent 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks being like, this is amazing. I could do this forever. And then all of a sudden, the entrepreneur in me, the idea just pops into my head and, you kind of scratch that itch and you research and you develop. And then obviously I call all the smartest people I know. And, before you know it, you create this company that the way I think about it is like, it had to be something that could leverage my skill set and that I'm passionate about, but something that has potential to be, just as big, if not bigger than AppDirect, which is really a high bar. And ultimately, at the core, I'm an entrepreneur and I love to support entrepreneurs. So a little bit of my backstory is I grew up in Niagara Falls, Canada, and my great-great-grandparents had started a furniture store in 1908 called Sachs Furniture on Main Street. It was the identity for my family for generations. And just as I was graduating from school, the Great Recession hit in '08. And after 100 years, we had to shut down the family furniture store. And the prevailing wisdom at the time was that all of Main Street, which was entrepreneurship, is dying. And therefore, you would just have big box stores and, maybe some, big tech companies that are going to take over the world. And I think invigorated me then was this just deep rooted passion to say, how do we help entrepreneurs through access to technology? And that was the founding premise from AppDirect, which is how do we help businesses find, buy, and use these emerging cloud solutions like a Shopify or Box or Dropbox or DocuSign at the time that no one around the world knew, but we wanted to bring to the world. And I think similarly today, I'm working not because I have to, but because I want to. And deep down inside, I need to help entrepreneurs achieve their vision. And I think that the biggest impediment today to business success is the noise in go to market. It's damn hard to scale revenue predictably. And anyone who's building, anyone who's selling feels that pain. And there's a deep rooted passion and vision I have for how we can help entrepreneurs. And that's what drives me every day to kind of get up to do this.
Obviously, you had a lot of success there with AppDirect, but as you're moving into building this new company, is there anything that you were thinking of that was top of mind that's like, this time it's going to be different? I'm going to do this different. This was a painful lesson. Anything like that come to mind?
Oh, yeah. So like over a decade in an AppDirect, all I would do is think about like, what was the root cause analysis? What would I do differently? How would I do it again? And then even when I was like on vacation, I read a lot of books and I have like all these, I like journaled about what the vision and values would be and all these different things. And what I think is you like fucking throw it all out the window and start from scratch. Honestly, so much changes so fast that like something that worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. What is consistent though, and this is like my mentors taught me, and some of my mentors are multi-generational people, is it's about the vision, the values, and ultimately the team and culture. And that just kind of building an infrastructure that attracts talent, that exudes whatever values you choose to have, and that brings you on the direction of your vision every day. That's what matters. And that's a muscle that needs to be built. It's like, an entrepreneurial pulse. And then everything else though, man, it's different. Like, holy shit. This is my second go. I have all this experience. I'm a little older, I have kids now, but the 22-year-olds or even 19-year-olds that are like dropping out of school to start companies, they are so smart. They have so much access to information and data and AI. So it's a crazy world out there where anyone can start a business and anyone can make it, which is so inspiring. It's truly incredible.
What about your own motivation system? So I obviously don't know your finances before AppDirect, but I have to assume that you have a lot more money now than at the start of AppDirect. Is it harder to be motivated at the level that you're at? Like, did you have to readjust your motivation system and what drives you and what pushes you to take urgent action?
So ultimately, I'm driven based on like mission, vision. I know that's the theme of the podcast, right? So, I feel like I'm not one to also judge anyone on what they want to do in life. So I feel like there's a lot of judgment if you buy a nice house, you buy a nice car, and a lot of people will shun certain types of success. But I think like, look, there's a lot of ways you can live your life, and I'm grateful I've learned a lot of mistakes along the way of overspending, underspending, stressing about too much about money, and then not having to stress about money. And the kind of thing that I find from people who are extremely wealthy or from people that are very come from humble beginnings is that ultimately everyone has the same level and threshold of stress, and everyone has financial troubles. So if you look at that guy that has the yacht, you could be like, this guy has no worries in the world and has made it. Chances are, in my mind, from my experience, that guy has way more stress than you. And, so I think I have over time removed myself where it sounds crazy, but like other than like the first week you buy an asset and get it, like it gives me no sustained happiness, like not that I want to show it off, but it's public. Like I bought this really sick house in Beverly Hills, loved it for a few weeks until like the article leaked, and then I had security issues and people judge you and all this. And then it went from this like dream that I made the dream to this thing that was more of a liability in my life. And similarly, my wife always loves racing cars. So I bought her a Ferrari for her 30th. Like it was cool for a week. I liked it because I wanted to do that. But do I get value out of that? Not other than the experience of driving with it. So to me, it's not at all about the material possessions. It's really about what you make with your time and the people that you spend time with. It's about the experiences. So to me, the lesson I learned, and I always make mistakes on this and keep making mistakes, but it's just like, who cares about what house you live in? Who cares what car you drive? And honestly, like I've met tons of people who don't have nice houses and nice cars, but they're like so happy and, they have great family lives. So I have zero judgment on like what people want to do, but I think that you have to learn and make mistakes when it comes to motivation, and it's constantly changing. So for me right now, at this point in time, I care a lot about my kids and my time and my freedom. And then I care a lot about the mission that we're solving with Landbase, and not much else at the moment. I feel like I'm on the grind right now. I've taken my time to travel. I've taken my time to ski and do all my favorite things. And I feel like right now there's no better opportunity than history to create a huge impact. So I'm throwing everything at it.
So what do the top priorities look like right now? If you just have to break it out, maybe the top 1, 2, 3 priorities, what do those look like?
So we launched about 6 months ago. We've had tremendous go-to-market success, great customer feedback and traction. However, for me, I think the pace of technology is moving so fast that in order to create an enduring brand or have a moat, you need to think differently. So I think the Y Combinator playbook of 2009 or the lean startup methodology, right? Those things don't apply anymore. So the idea of like build a point solution around a defined customer market and scale it, I just don't think that is, I think it's a saturated playbook. So you have to think about, especially in the world where now people can get access to not only like every book or article ever published, but like the brain of a super, intelligent person, like, all systems are off in terms of how you create a moat. And in my mind, if I'm taking VC capital, you mentioned, we raised a 12.5 million seed from top VCs. It's my job to have crazy returns. Like essentially they make their economics by returning the fund from one investment. And sure as hell, like if I'm going to be here, I want a gun to be the number one. So that means, you have to take extreme risk and be a little crazy and do things differently if you want to have that type of outlier outcome. So to your point on what I think about day in, day out is how do we build moats? And for those people who are a little bit more operational, we do have 3 OKRs, which are the objectives that we measure ourselves on. And it's pretty simple. It's faster, cheaper, better. So if we're helping businesses, automate their go-to-market, we need to be faster. So today it takes months to launch a campaign. You either have to hire an agency and interact with them and they have to learn about you and it's going to take months. You either have to hire an SDR and to ramp them up and chances are that doesn't work. So you need another person, or you have to build this complex tech and figure out deliverability, like all those things. It's just so complicated. So we want to take things from months to minutes. And we're there with the feed that we just released that technically we're releasing in a couple of weeks. So I've seen it for the last few weeks and tested it, but public, it's on the DL until we launch. Ultimately, we want to be faster, cheaper, better for our customers. And historically, it took months to be able to launch a go-to-market campaign. You either had to, hire an SDR, ramp them up and train them, and half of the time they don't work. Or you had to work with an agency, which could take months to go back and forth to understand your business. And then they might flood you with leads, but none of them convert. Or you have to aggregate your own go-to-market stack and data providers. And that you need like a PhD in go-to-market in order to do. And so what we're doing is streamlining it from months to minutes. And we've just released kind of like a live announcement, this campaign feed that recommends campaign strategies to you that have a high likelihood to convert. And all you have to do is accept, decline, or edit them. And you can launch in minutes, not months. On the cheaper side, again, if you have to hire people, like a lot of people, or you have to work with an agency, it's super expensive. If you have to build your own stack, crazy expensive. We can do things like 90% cheaper than the old way. And then ultimately with AI and machine intelligence, if you build your own models and your predictive analytics, and this speaks to the data moat that I'm mentioning, you can actually have higher performance than a human because machines can interpret so much. So I'm still a believer in human agencies. The differentiator is that humans should approve every campaign and have like the relationship and build the trust. But essentially machines can ingest all this data that can increase the chance that your campaigns succeed. So to your question around objectives, bring it back to first principles. What I've always thought is, what's my vision and mission? What steps can I take to get there? And how do I rally my team? So what I need to do is define 3 very clear objectives that align internal team with my customer value point. And I need to put them out in the world and manifest them. So I'm happy to share them on your podcast. And, even though we might not be where we want to be today, every day we're making inroads to get better and better. And I think that our performance should be literally like magnitudes better than traditional methods very soon.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode. You have a go-to-market platform. You better be good at go-to-market. I feel like it's not really an option, right?
Yeah, although you know what? It's challenging because there's so much noise in the go-to-market realm. So we essentially have Stanford PhDs, NASA data scientists. We built this AI lab that has some of the smartest minds in AI and go-to-market. And we built what Gartner would call like domain-specific models for go-to-market. And we call our model GTM1 Omni. And it's been trained on 175 million contacts, 22 million businesses, all these different data and signals. And think of it as like a brain that can understand your business and yourself. And then think about the ideal strategy to bring to target your ideal buyer and company. And we have tons of insights from this model. And what we kind of have from training it on just big data sets is we know who has the easy go with outreach and who has like the hard times. And it's not surprising, but the AI outreach is overused by lead gen agencies, go-to-market players. Like it's kind of spammy, to be honest. So what's ironic is we use our intelligence in the models to tell us what to do, but it's practically impossible for like someone in AI go-to-market to generate leads from cold email just because it's such a noisy channel. And like a year ago, it would have been really easy. It just reflects the speed in which things are changing. And a lot of people won't tell you that or be honest about it. But I mean, we see all the data. So what my belief is that this automation is going to help automate the mundane and also bring machine intelligence to the forefront, where in the past, human brain couldn't interpret so many signals, but now the machine can. But the differentiator in the long run is actually going to be the human stuff. So as I started the podcast with, we have this fundamental belief that you shouldn't have to work for your software should work for you. Part of that is that you shouldn't prompt your AI. So right now we're used to like chatting in Copilot or telling the AI what to do. You actually can't harness its intelligence if you're overriding it all the time. So the idea is the AI should tell you, hey, I've ingested all this stuff and here's the trust of sources of why I'm making this recommendation, but you should take this action now. And as the human that has agency, you can be like, yeah, that's something I would do. Or you could be like, no. So again, just like a dating app, you could be like, this is not a fit for me. It's subjective, like maybe someone else would find her pretty, but like I don't. But, same thing with my view of these like agentic applications is that AI will not get it right 100% of the time. It's not even because the data, the machine intelligence is imperfect. It's actually because human subjectivity is the differentiator in a brand. So, our view is serve up recommendations. The human can choose to approve, decline, or edit. But that human, that's the difference, man. It's not the technology. So like, even though as a technologist, someone building these models, I think what we can do can dramatically help businesses, can have huge ROI, can have amazing uplift. I don't think you'll ever be able to solve product market fit using a machine or be able to alone, right? Or solve like for the human elements of like trust and relationship. So I believe in an optimistic world where the AI can allow us to reclaim our day so we can do more of what we love and be more human. And we can harness machine intelligence to help accelerate the pace of growth. But yeah, for me and my go-to-market, it's ironic, but we're the hardest kind of category of company. I mean, the other ones, Indian IT outsourced developers are hard because they've always been spamming people with emails. Recruiting is really hard. But on the flip side, and this maybe is a hint to someone who wants to create a business around something like this, we're finding that micro ICPs or audiences that have a very niche problem that's not really readily sellable online get huge demand. And it's so easy. They could have like insane open rates, like 90% email open rates where others like, can't even get 1%. And the reason is that even though we kind of all are working online and feel like, we have this digital economy, most traditional businesses still sell offline and there's no data to kind of bring these things online. So think about like tool and die manufacturing or landscaping or, mining. I doubt any of these people are using, like they've never heard of Clay or, maybe even Zoom Info. So for all these traditional businesses, it's actually you get a huge, huge head start if you're the first to create content because there are people looking online. It's just, it hasn't been digitized yet. So if I were an entrepreneur today that's looking to start something and test really quickly, you can even use Landbase to test, but like you can find that all these niche traditional markets that aren't digitized, there's this like demand and thirst to get knowledge. And that makes your go-to-market a lot easier because you're very differentiated.
When we look at your overall marketing strategy, I spent some time on the site. I see a lot of video. So I would have to assume video plays a big role. How would you summarize the general marketing strategy, general marketing philosophy?
Yeah, so we have a cheat. So I know people talk about like eating your own dog food, but I call it drinking my own champagne. And because we trained GTM 1 Omni, we have all these insights on the most efficient way you run your go-to-market. And what we found is that 45% of campaigns full ups fail to generate leads that convert. So that's like, think about it, half of campaigns that people run are unsuccessful. The other thing is it's really costly to run a campaign. So normally if you hire an SDR, they're going to be assigned to a territory and they're just going to run the same play over and over again. Or if you have a marketing team, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to go do an event or a conference and here's my brand statement, and you use the same thing at the conference for 3 years. So the cost of experimentation has traditionally been really high. What we've found is that what matters most in this era is digital trust. And that's trust in the seller's brand. So what's your company, as well as the individual. And in the world of outreach, it's really easy because if I'm Dan calling from AppDirect, maybe someone have heard of AppDirect. If I'm Dan calling from Landbase, no one's going to have heard of Landbase. So, you kind of have to emphasize whatever part is the position of strength. But if you're a startup, there's a lot of disadvantages, unfortunately, not only because, especially if you're a first-time founder, you don't have a big digital presence, or if you're young, you don't have that digital footprint or profile. Your company doesn't either. And it's only getting higher because to reach someone's inbox or to have effective ads, your domain authority matters a lot. So if you just created an inbox, you actually have no authority, and it's really, really, really hard. So what we did is we followed the intelligence of our model, and it told us the steps you take in order to accelerate your digital trust to increase your go-to-market efficiency. So if you go to landbase.com, I think it's /digital trust, but you can find it on the resources section. You can run your company based on your URL, and we'll spit out a score. And it tells you the areas where you're strong or weak. And it's things like that build digital trust, or things like having relevant case studies. Typically, video is better than written. But if someone sees someone like them telling a story of success, which they trusted you, that's better than anything else in the world. From there, ratings and reviews on third-party websites matter a lot. From there, credibility of other people talking about you who have authority. So think about like the press or an analyst in your industry or a really specific journalist. The other thing is like the way that the internet pattern recognizes the connectivity between your network. So what's your traffic, but where's your traffic originating, and how do you get SEO backlinks? So for example, I'm doing this podcast. It could have zero impact. I shouldn't say that, because I'm sure there should be wisdom that's shared with your viewers. But in terms of, being selfish, if it's set up in the right way where you backlink and you call out a few things and you have indexing, it strengthens your domain authority as Brett, and it strengthens my domain authority and gives me more credibility because you're interviewing me as an authority and you have like more high profile.
Now, I see you're also a podcast host. You had one at your previous company. You have one now. What's that been like for you? What value have you seen from podcasting?
I find my favorite thing is to talk to interesting people. So the best thing about either having a podcast or being on a podcast is be able to have, thought-provoking conversations with people you respect and admire. You probably see this all the time. So my first podcast, Decoding Digital, we profiled high-profile founders and innovators. We had everyone from Aaron Levy from Box to Jim McKelvey, the co-founder of Square, to Michelle, the co-founder and president of Cloudflare. So kind of massive, companies, really impactful people in the world. We also had some, people in different aspects of philanthropy, and we had actors like Adrian Grenier from Entourage. And, yeah, exactly. But spoke to, some of the psychological, the kind of the difference in reality of like movies from real life and kind of being an entrepreneur. So I think like it was a really fun opportunity to profile really people that I admire. And actually, for the format where I shut up and I just ask like very few questions and people run on. So I feel like now I got to reciprocate because I'm on your podcast. But yeah, I think that what's cool about the podcast is we ran it for 50 episodes. When I moved on from my operational role at AppDirect, we kind of stopped. But if you look, it's kind of like continuing to climb. So the people that we interviewed, like a Joe Lonsdale, who's very topical today, or Brad Garlinghouse with crypto, like these are legends that people Google them. And sometimes the podcast is something that comes up. So it kind of just keeps feeding itself. And I love it because there's so many insights that can be shared with the world. And I love that you're doing the same, and love that the podcast is focused really on vision, which, to me, any entrepreneurship in life and anything you do is all about having a vision and working toward that vision. And it's, to me, the pursuit of the vision, just like pursuit of happiness, which is the goal, because it's hard to achieve all the things you want in life, but the pursuit of them is fun too.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their U.S. and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
I get asked this question all of the time, so I'm going to spin it back to you. What's your favorite episode that you ever did, or your favorite guest? I know it's hard to choose one. If you had to choose one, what should we check out?
You know what? I think this might have been episode number 1. But Eric Ries from the Lean Startup. So we mentioned the Lean Startup playbook is changing today. Kind of the playbook guided tech for 10 years. And he's such a thoughtful thinker. And I've got to know him in many different capacities, in terms of his work at the long-term stock exchange. But, I bet if we were to talk to him today, he would agree with me that playbook is different. I think that there's still a lot of lessons you can learn from it. But I'd love to see him put out either a podcast episode or a new book on like the rules of the AI era, because I bet it's just like totally different.
Nice. I'll check out that one and Adrian Grenier's, where I've watched Entourage a stupid amount of times in my life. It's like my go-to feel-good show. So I'll have to check that one out.
The teaser behind it, so it was my favorite show too, and is that, yeah, I think we all kind of get obsessed with a character in a movie, but that's all it is. It's funny because like even in Silicon Valley, I've, been around for 15 years, maybe it's not that long, but Peter Thiel always said like cover up, cover down. So you get on Forbes and then there's like the profile story making you the hero and then you're the villain. And like over the years, like whether it's through fraud, which would be like an Elizabeth Holmes or an SBF, but there are a ton of other founders that were like heroes and they were just pulled down by the media. So I think I've tried to remove myself from idolizing anyone, whether it's a politician or a celebrity, and just think like we're all human, we're all equal. And I truly think that that's like humbling and humanizing, because I think that's the problem of like watching these movies. It's like you get caught up and you're like, oh, there are really people like that in the world, but there's not, like there's no such thing as Vinny Chase.
There is an Ari Gold though with Ari Emanuel. He's pretty,
Yeah, yeah.
That's all fair points there. What about your current podcast today? Let's talk about that. I know it's a unique podcast. It's a different format.
Yeah, what we just launched. So one of my favorite things to kind of do right now is experiment with AI. And our kind of 3 values at Landbase are own it, automate it, and elevate it. And the elevated component is really just kind of thinking about the AI magic and creating magical experiences and kind of being on the adoption curve. And my values actually are very different than the AppDirect ones, which were humility, positive mental attitude, true north, intensity, and ownership. So I think different kind of vector, I think again for different times, but it's funny. So like what we want to do is just experiment with different things. So what we found in our models is that generic podcasts are really tough these days. And therefore you want to have like a niche audience. So I think what we're testing is like, there's all these niche things that people are scouring for online, like I said, that don't exist online. So how do you get those stories online? So what we're doing is kind of, the first test was for our own brand, Landbase, but it's called Agentic AI in Action. And we actually demystify some of the kind of complicated elements of agentic AI. And it's actually all prompted, all automated, and it's clone voices. So we were transparent about it that it's not, real people, but when you listen to it, it's actually scary good and it's scary technical and you're getting insights that you wouldn't get otherwise. But it's kind of like a fun hobby passion project. But we have a great partner, Doris, who helped produce and proliferate these podcasts. And, what we hope is to be able to, through our partner, offer these to all of our customers. So if someone's building their go-to-market, Landbase can understand who you are and who your target audience is. And then for your target audience, we can figure out like, what are they searching for? What are their pain points and what doesn't exist? So we can create content that you can approve and you could kind of add value to, but essentially we can create content that has much more chance of being discovered by a niche audience that you're trying to target. So therefore you can run omni-channel campaigns between ads, inbound and outbound to this niche audience. And that should dramatically increase the effectiveness of your go-to-market.
I think there's generally 2 audiences listening in. I would say the founders listening in are probably thinking, okay, how can I use this to reduce my cost on the go-to-market side? And then there's go-to-market leaders listening in, or go-to-market practitioners who are probably thinking, this guy sounds like the devil. He's trying to replace me. How should those 2 different groups be thinking about what you're doing and the problem that you're solving?
Yeah, so I'm actually a big believer that AI will not replace people. Humans are more important than ever. So it really goes down to how are people spending their time. I really don't like the first cohort of Gen AI where they're like, I'm an AI whatever named, like AI SDR named Alice or Ava, and I'm going to take your job. And here's a billboard of like a fake person. I think that's dehumanizing. I mean, it definitely sells. It works. It's a good gimmick. Like there's a lot of, yeah. But I would say that, yeah, I believe in something very different, which is over the last 10, 15 years, we went from being humans, doing human business, whatever that would mean, building trust, being in person, collaborating, golf, dinners, trust, to literally 80% of our jobs being like pushing a mouse on a screen and toggling between, computer screens that don't work together because the technology doesn't integrate seamlessly. And then, you get distracted by Slack and you have to go, stop your the thing you're doing. So to me, the machines will automate the mundane so humans can do more human things. I also think the benefit, because you mentioned like, oh, it's a cost savings. I think that if done right, these AI models can harness data and machine intelligence to be able to produce results that's far better than what exists today. So one of the techniques we use in our model is called reinforcement learning with human intervention. And it's a reward model. So we should create many versions of campaign strategies and campaigns. And because we have a lot of data on who you are and what you're selling and who your target buyer is and what they're buying and what their pain points are, we simulate using AI all these different versions and we score them and we only pick the best version. And that has a huge uplift. So you're no longer guessing, you have a much higher chance of hitting it right. So I think, like I said, the potential for AI can make things faster, cheaper, better. But I think the end result isn't that humans are replaced. It's that the shit that we do that is soul sucking is replaced and we're more human. And then the question for business is, do you reclaim your day by having free time to go do more work that you love? And some companies will choose to do that. So like Jamie Dimon had his rant at JP Morgan. He was an investor in AppDirect and kind of got to know him. I think he's a really great thinker, but he's an intense guy who's running a great company. And he's not going to tolerate people who are reclaiming their day to fucking chill. Whereas a lot of people out there are saying, okay, 4-hour work deep, we're automating the mundane. So go take some time off. And that's part of our culture. And I think, again, this goes down to judgment. I'm not judging one culture or another, but I do think that what's going to happen in the future is most of what people do today is going to be like automated for the better. And people have the choice. Do they want to work less? Do they want to, work more? Do they want to collaborate differently? And, what cultured business do you want to go to? You want to go to an in-person culture where you're going to be debating and being with people, or do you want to take the, value of remote and maybe you're in the mountains and you can hike a lot more? So I think that I'm a big optimist in AI, and I think it will make us more human, not less human.
What's Jamie like in real life? Yeah, I've just heard that little lead call that came out of him ranting against remote work, which I found to be pretty hilarious. I guess it's more of a culture conversation. Like, what's he like? Is he like that level of intensity?
What's wild is I did a program at Harvard in my undergrad and heard him speak then. So this has got to be like 20 years ago. This would have been before I started AppDirect, 2008. And he speaks his just like wisdom after wisdom. And at that point, he was speaking to Harvard students who are all looking for jobs, and it was the height of the Great Recession. And he was telling people, like, chill out. It's okay. It's not the end of the world if you don't go into finance or Wall Street. There's a lot of other options, and find what you're passionate about. I still have the handwritten notes from that thing. And I think he talked about how his daughter didn't go into banking. I think it was either his daughter or his daughter's friend, like took an internship at Nike, and that was kind of cool and creative. But yeah, I've probably met him a dozen times over the years, and he's very good at reading the room. He always, his format tends to be smaller groups where he'll ask people to ask a question. And this is something I learned from him, and I love doing this. So he'll go around the room and say, like, let's say 20 people. I'll say, like, what's a question that you have for me? And, introduce yourself. And then he'll write it all down. And then he'll go on like a 20-minute or longer flowing dissertation about everything. And this guy has access. I mean, it's funny because today with AI, you have access to a lot of information. But like, 15, 20 years ago, like the shit that he was saying was like months or years ahead of the knowledge that anyone else had. And the stories he tells from like the, '08 crisis and the government and things like that, it's wild. So what I found is that leaders over time get more comfortable with who they are and less paranoid about what they can be blamed for. And it takes a lot to be able to get there. But someone like Jamie, I feel like the rant, it's a true reflection of the current state of the world, which is, what the fuck? Like, we're building a company to optimize for shareholder value. That's the point of a company. And you can have a good social mission. But if your company's taken over by people who are going to protest because you're asking them to be in person, it is not, government or law. This is a company. So you can choose to get the fuck out. I agree with him. And honestly, I think like if you're the CEO of a company and you have alignment with your board and you're following laws and ethics, you can set the values you want. And if the values are 4 days a week, go in the mountain and AI is going to do what you do and we're going to pay you some amount, fucking great. Then you're going to attract the type of talent that's going to want that. And that's awesome. Like, it's so cool to have people who love to do their activities most of the time. If you're someone like Jamie who wants to hire, high intensity people, that's great too. So my view is that, software is going to automate the mundane. It's going to work for you so you can reclaim your day. And it's up to the company to choose. Do you want a culture of people who are going to reclaim to chill or reclaim to work harder?
I love it. Final question for you. I'm seeing now that we're over on time. I don't want to keep you any longer. Let's zoom out 10 years into the future. What is that big picture vision that you're building towards?
Wow. So I used to operate in 30-year cycles. And what's wild is like a year in AppDirect time is like a month, or I used to say a month in Landbase time, but now it's like minutes. It's just things were changing so fast. So I think 10 years, the world could be so different. Again, I'm an optimist. So what I'm working toward is a world in which your software works for you. You don't have to work for it. You can reclaim your day. people who are reclaiming their day can put their mind toward higher problems. So a world where we solve some of the climate change issues that are happening, and you have smart people wanting to help with health and biotech, and people don't have cancer anymore, in a world where we fix the nature and are more in person. Maybe a world where there's deeper spice exploration and people have some exposure there. A world where our food doesn't have toxins in it and microplastics in the ocean. So I think that for Landbase, it's funny because I think we can achieve what we set out to in a fast time cycle just based on the speed of things. But it's really the mission, which is about reclaiming your day and making a world where software works for you. I think that can create a world that hopefully makes us more human and not less human, and allows us to have more agency and more authority over who we are as humans, and not necessarily kind of sucking ourselves into a screen that's endless in a dystopian future where the robots take over.
That's where we're going to end it. Man, this has been such a fun conversation. I really enjoyed this. For those listening in, where should we send them? Where should they go if they want to follow along for more?
Yeah, check out my LinkedIn. You can email me at daniel@landbase.com, or you can go to our website, www.landbase.com.
Amazing. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.